Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio at 11 p.m. We're here live in another study of the book, Evolution in Two Worlds. And today we're studying chapter 8 of part 2. Well, let us recap. The book Evolution in Two Worlds is a part of a 13-book series regarding the two worlds, the incarnate and the discarnate. André Luiz, through Chico Xavier, and in this book also through Valdo Vieira, two mediums, brings to us new understanding about who we are. We are immortal spirits living another reincarnation. And since no solar, our dear André Luiz shows to us that life is much more than the eyes can see, training us, coaching us to see ourselves beyond the physical reality. Well, let us share the fact that Spiritism brings to us the true awareness of who we are, spirits. In the preface of this book, Emmanuel and André Luiz, in two prefaces, they invite us to understand our multi-millenary pilgrimage. You and I have been living for many millennia. It from day of creation of the spirit to the age of reasoning, André Luiz explains that it took us 1.5 billion years to achieve the level that we are now. And we cannot take it for granted. It is on us to really deepen our awareness and expand ourselves willingly. That's another take on it. In the first part of this book, which was psychographed and published in 1958, 60 years ago, André Luiz leads us into a new understanding of how we evolved perispiritually, the spiritual body, through different internships in matter, in the different kingdoms of nature, till we've reached the human kingdom. In the second part of the book, we have 20 other chapters summarizing about general issues in life. We have friends who have been helping us lead this study here at Kardec Radio. Today, we'll be studying chapter 8. Chapter 8 is about marriage and divorce. Thank God there is illumination in that regard, because it is certainly a topic that needs, first and foremost, new understanding. There is so much for people to understand, to rid themselves of prejudices, misconceptions, and here we have André Luiz giving us a hand. Are you ready? Yes? We hope so. We hope you're ready, joining us in this journey of the study of the book Evolution in Two Worlds. But we can't forget to share as well that this book is not knowledge for knowledge. This book is helping us feel that we are immortal spirits. Okay? It's not easy, it's not simple, because majority of people on earth is still sleeping in their consciousness. Okay? Hopefully we are awakened and staying more awake than asleep. Right? All right, so welcome, dear friends. Hello, Melissa. Hello, Teresa Castro, Sunshine, Sol Souza. I see friends joining us here. Welcome, welcome. Are you ready? Me too. So let us go, asking the good spirits to lead all of us, wherever we are in this world, to stay connected with the higher spirits and opening ourselves to the new understanding. Ready for the new? Let's go. So, André Luiz brings to us marriage and divorce. He begins the chapter by asking a question. Can we have some explanation about marriage, as well as divorce on the physical plane, from a spiritual perspective? He begins by telling us, let us, let me change this slide because we can't see it well. Okay, hold on a second, friends. I'm just adjusting. Oh, wow. Okay, here we are. So, let us analyze without prejudice. Let us not see these as innovative concepts or disrespect the feelings of others. Oh, André Luiz, we are really appreciative, and we wonder why he says that, right? No, we don't. He knows as a wise spirit that this is a sensitive subject, but needs to be addressed. Because since ancient times, we have a lot of prejudice and we have a lot of judgment, right? Finally, André Luiz comes to us and brings respectful addressing of inevitable issues that happen in life. So let us see how he's going to lead us into that new understanding. He then continues by saying the following. He says, we cannot forget that marriage may present a variety of features aiming multiple purpose on earth. Thus, accidentally incarnated men or women may several times experience marriage on earth without finding the company of like-minded souls with whom they would attain the ideal union. This happens because commonly it is necessary to redeem this or that debt contracted with their sexual energy, which was unhappily applied before the principles of cause and effect. Okay, friends, we don't dare to say André Luiz means this because only he can tell us for sure. But according to studies in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in the Spirit's book, in the book Sexo e Vida, Vida e Sex, which is not in English yet, Sex and Destiny, and many others, we know that marriage is a human contract. Number one, marriage is not a divine contract. It's a human contract. Who says it? It's in the Spirit's book by Kardec. Go to the law of reproduction, and you're going to find the breakdown of this. And then when you go to the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a marriage about this. There is a chapter about this. And we're saying this for the sole reason that it is important for us to understand that though sacred contract, it is a sacred contract, but it's human, meaning you do not get married to anybody for eternity, for immortality. It's a partnership that you put together. But then that's the reason why he says, clear cut, he's telling us, we cannot forget that there are several reasons why people get married. Yes, there are people who get married because they are afraid of being alone. There are people who get married because they need financial conditions. To date, there are people selling their children to pay off their debts and allowing them to get married to whomever has the money. That still happens. arranged marriages. We still have nowadays marriages out of financial interest, out of socioeconomic status. There are impositional marriages. There are so many different types of marriages. So Andre Luiz is right. We cannot forget that marriage has different purposes on earth. And people may accidentally, that's interesting when he uses that word, accidentally get married and not find a like-minded soul. What is to be married accidentally? Okay? It's like an accident. Well, a circumstance that is temporary led the person to that partnership, and it may not last for a long time, right? So Andre Luiz is saying this is how it goes. He is applying what Emmanuel says in the book Thought and Life, understanding. It's one of the most beautiful chapters regarding marriage and divorce that we have in Spiritism, because it brings to us the awareness that we need to be responsible, but also to understand that there are several circumstances that happen and we're not aware of. We cannot judge people. You don't know the circumstances, right? And there are people who get married, which is few get married to like-minded souls on earth, still few. In this life, it doesn't guarantee that in the next life they will. Because in the next life, another life, they may not. And then what's going to happen? We cannot judge. And he says, this happens. Why do we get married accidentally and then may not find a person? Because in previous lives, we encountered people and contracted some form of debt in our sexual exchange. Now we meet them again. There is some form of affection. There is some form of attraction. There's some history there, but not enough to hold us together. We're not justifying. We're not pro any cause, but we are understanding. As a psychologist, I see the cases in a daily basis. And if people could just be on the behind the scenes and understand, they would be less judgmental. Because we wish life were like a Disney movie where everything is like happily forever, right? Happy for eternity. It's not a Disney movie. In real life, we're gonna meet people, go through tests, go through trials, so we may feel the attraction. But what if the companion is not on the same page? You wish that happens, but the other person is cheating, the other person is brutal, rough. What are you gonna do? This is just a question. So he says there are many reasons why people get married. People may accidentally get together and experience marriage several times. This was written in 1958. In 1958 in Brazil, this was a super hot topic, a super taboo. If it's a taboo nowadays in the world, in Brazil back then in 1958, to talk about marriage and divorce in these terms saying men and women may several times experience marriage on earth. Back then, people were not experiencing several times. Now they are, but not in 1958. You see how this book is up to date, 1958. So the other element here that we can't forget and we're going to reinforce is because of our needs to our need to educate our sexual force, we may encounter partners of previous lives that not necessarily remarried, but we had some form of sexual exchange. And nowadays we encounter, it feels like, wow, we have something in common, and then get married. And in the long run, you see like something is off here. What's happening? He's saying, we were trying to adjust it and it didn't happen. I remember a book that was written by the renowned Richard Simonetti named Plan B. It's not in English yet. And he talks about this. A woman that gets married once and then it doesn't match. She separates and feels driven to another soul, etc. And I remember Richard Simonetti saying exactly what what André Luiz says here. Sometimes it's a way for people to close a chapter with that person. So does a divorce need to be rough, brutal, or can it just be a little easier, less struggles? That's a question for us. So what happens? I'm going to go back to that point, but let's add a few elements that André Luiz brings to us. He says, if somebody got married and that person died and gets married to the second person again, he says, if the atoning marriage occurs in a second marriage, the first spouse, now deceased, when adjusted to the noble affection, okay, often supports the incarnated spouse in the second marriage in an exercise of understanding and pure love. That's André Luiz's case in many ways, and other spirits in the spiritist literature. So they get married, and then this spouse discarnates. And then the person gets married again, but this marriage is not like the love of their lives, but needs to keep happening. So this spouse that discarnated is going to stay there helping, assisting, understanding. That's big relief because I see many people who think, oh my gosh, I got married. Now my husband died or my wife died and I miss them, but I want to get married again. And they are afraid that that spouse is going to be mad at them. Well, if between you and that spouse there was real love, that spouse is going to come back and help you. Understanding that marriage is it's not a possession. Marriage is a partnership in life, a sacred partnership in which you strive to work together, to grow together. So, you may be concluding something that Chico Xavier himself concluded as well. We need to help people get married better. It begins at home. It begins with the education at home. But Chico Xavier used to say that we need a course for parents and a course for people who are getting married. Well, that doesn't solve the problems, but at least some form of awareness. Huh? Why are you getting married? Are you aware? What are the reasons? Because there are people who simply reply, I get married because I like him. I like her. Okay, is that enough? Because we match. Because he has a good job. Or because she works hard. She's a hard worker. She's a good mother. I mean, are these the reasons why we get married? Because in the long run, these reasons are not going to suffice. We need to find deeper roots to really stay there. And of course, if you're listening to this and you got married and divorced, don't feel guilty. Divorce is not a crime. Did you know that? It's not a crime. Not a crime at all. Divorce is simply you're just saying that human contract ended. That's not a crime at all. We hope we understand that. And those who judge others who divorce, they're going to experience sometime, if not in this life, in future lives, because they're going to understand that marriage sometimes is beyond your management. Can I give you a proof? Read the book 2000 years ago by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. Livia loved Emmanuel, the senator Publius Lentulus. He adored her, but the intrigues, the calumny, the slander that was created around them separated them for 25 years. Separated them. They were living under the same roof, but not really as husband and wife. They were separated. Slander, intrigues, calumny, that happens in both worlds. I see many marriages that have troubles, have problems, issues, because obsessors don't want them to be well. It's a trial. It's an expiation. I see sometimes incarnate family members separating the very spouses or friends or communities, creating scenarios that pull the spouses apart. There are so many elements that if we are naive to just think that it's just the two of us, we needed to go do a whole course in psychology, read all the spiritist books to see that between two people who are married, there are many more people in between us. Right? Right, Melissa. 2000 years ago, Emmanuel explains to us, as he says in the preface, this book, 2000 years ago, he says, it's about issues that happen to date. Envy, jealousy, slander, anger, hatred, competition. Right? So now André Luiz tells us a little more. He's going to reveal more. Let's see what he says. He tells us, so which spouse will be reunited? Will we be reunited within the spiritual realm? Let's say you got married to 2, and then, or 3, or 4, or 5, you never know. And then you go back to the spiritual home. Who is going to be there waiting for you? It will prevail the conjunction of the like-minded ones in the highest degree of the scale of elected affinities. So, again, It's the law of affinity. It's the law of affinity. So we would like to share with you a beautiful, a beautiful exercise that Mentor Joseph has given to us way back when. He said, friends, practice looking at your spouse as a brother and sister before God. See how sacred it is, that person before you. And understand that this person in this life, or for that moment, for that time being, is a partner. But if you discarnate now, or they discarnate now, or you get divorced, or for whatever reason, you're still brother and sisters before God. So you cannot cherish hatred against one another when things go bad. We can't. And if you are the person, I'm not saying you, but if there is a person who is creating dissension out of jealousy, spite, envy, they're going to pay a high price for it. We are here to be peacemakers. We are here to be conciliatory, to be gregarious, love society. So exercise number 1 for us regarding this chapter. Are you being gregarious in your life or not? I'm asking this myself. Are you bringing people together, or are you inciting intrigues and pulling them apart? In families, in communities, and I say this as well, in Spiritist movement, where people are supposed to bring each other together and not apart. That's true unity. Unity is not an organization. Okay? Chico Xavier once, before he discarnated, he was coordinating our Spiritist Center in the city of Uberaba, o Grupo Espírita da Prece, the Spiritist group of prayer. And Chico Xavier himself, he never affiliated his center with any organization, federation, anything. And when people demanded that he did, he said, the day a federation and organization is more important than the cause itself, I will no longer be a Spiritist. And if you are part of an organization, a Spiritist center, a Spiritist association of any form, ask, are you being gregarious, bringing people together? Or on the behind the scenes creating slanders, like the book that we see Fulvia in the book 2,000 years ago. She was the one that on behind the scenes was creating slanders and putting Livia and Publius Lentulus apart. They suffered, but she suffered more in the long run. Law of action and reaction. You sow, you're going to reap. You sow, you're going to reap. And that's exactly, and you understand why I'm talking about this, because our dear Andre Luiz, in the next part of this chapter, he talks about jealousy and spite. These are Andre Luiz words. He says, but if the desperation of jealousy or the cloud of spite blinded this or that member of the fraternal union, the spouses rejoined in the higher planes, sustain the reincarnation of that fellow as discrete benefactors. They interpret the rebellion for sick symptom without taking away the friendly support until that fellow is readjusted. So what does that mean? So in a marriage, how many marriages don't go right? Many don't go right because there's always interference from incarnates and discarnates that are jealous or have spite regarding the relationship. I'll say these words in Portuguese: ciúmes, inveja, despeito. Okay? It's that feeling of like, it can't be mine, it will be nobody else. And I see this in the Spiritist movement. When people create dissension, they see a beautiful couple working together. They work their way out to separate them apart. And when they do, they create more dissension between them, more dissension, pulling them apart. And why can't you work together with your former spouse? If at the end of the day, we are children of God. I know people who still collaborate with one another, still cooperate with one another. If you dedicate yourself to your spouse and do not support your former spouse, besides crazy cases that I know of, we are being materialistic. Because then, if this is your spouse, you give your attention, etc., and then your former spouse, you just disregard. If you are a true spiritist, you will see things from another angle. There's no possession feeling. I understand there are cases in which there is cheating, and that's a hard case. There's cheating. Of course, you need your distance, right? I myself would have a hard time too, but this is not my personal opinion, right? But on the other hand, if there is, just because you do not feel like being together, you don't need to be enemies. As André Luiz is saying to us, in the laws of the spiritual realm, the couple that is more evolved is going to rescue and help the ones that are creating dissension and being jealous, sometimes reincarnating as a couple and bringing that third one as a child of theirs. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's beautiful. So what else does André Luiz have to tell us? Let's see. He says, oops. Okay, he tells us more. Parents very often receive at the institute of their home sons and daughters whose past lifestyles ask them to rescue all debts, purify emotions, renovate impulses, share commitments, and improve affective relationships. What is he talking about here? He's saying that the former partners in marriages or sexual relationships, they come back so we can refine it. Sometimes it's somebody who whom we hurt, now becomes a child of ours. Or somebody whom we didn't respect fully, abused, Now they come so we can give back to them what we took from them. Mhm. In the book, and Life Goes On, you're gonna see the case of Vera and Kyle. Kyle getting married again for a second time with Vera. Her mother dies, and because Kyle took all the money from the family, the spirits arranged that the mother of Vera is going to reincarnate at some point as a child of theirs and going to receive back in 30 years when she is a young adult, she is going to receive the money back, yeah, that the father stole when she was still incarnated. Read the book and Life Goes On, and Andrea Luiz is going to share one of these cases there. Okay? Now, there's another element here that is hard to talk about, but we have to talk about because Andrea Luiz discloses it as well. He says about psychological issues in the family life. He says childhood psychoneuroses and fixations may emerge in the reincarnating entities when the veil of reincarnation does not hide all the memories. Ah, that's why the rule of thumb nowadays on Earth, not for all children, but for many children, usually the daughter is closer to the dad than to the mother, and the son closer to the mother than to the father. And you wonder why? Because of previous lives relationships. But in this life, we're supposed to love one another in a more sublimated way. What does that mean? What does that mean? You know what it means, right? Cases of pedophiles in the family, uncles, cousins, fathers, sometimes mothers, who abuse their very children, their very relatives sexually. Why does this happen? In many cases, it's related to previous lives relationships. But as it says in the previous paragraph, we need to purify our emotions. In this life, we're not supposed to be romantic partners. My daughter is my daughter, my son is my son, and I need to purify my emotion. It's a must. And if you need help, go find help. And he continues. However, today's sexologists and psychoanalysts may give it exaggerated importance to sexual behavior and personality, since they lack more intense understanding on the reality of the spirit and of reincarnation, which would enable them to be more effective helping their patients in regard to the moral issues. So he's saying when psychoanalysis or psychiatry deals simply with the biology, the sexual impulse by itself, they don't understand that on the behind the scenes there is the spirit, the mental body that is dictating that direction. We understand that when children bring that about, we need to heal. And I'm going to give a few cases here. The other day, somebody, there's so many cases nowadays, and we would say, pay attention. You can understand your child from the crib, I would say, to the attentive mother from the gestation life. From the prenatal life, you can tell issues that are coming up. But for others, observing the behavior in childhood, you can tell. And don't think, oh, it's going to pass. No, no, no. You're going to have clear signs. The other day, somebody told me, oh, my, There is an 8-year-old that I know of, the person said to me, that is addicted to pornography. I mean, you need to rush to treatment because that child is an immortal spirit that is presenting sexual addiction clearly coming strongly in that reincarnation. You need to tame that sexual impulse and educate it now. That's not beautiful. It's not going to go away. It's going to get worse with the hormones that are going to come later. And trouble comes. So we need to observe. And in our relationships in our family, the feelings that we have, right? So what do you do with it when you realize there is a form of attraction? Sublimate it. Tell yourself, this is a brother and sister of God that I'm learning to respect. Don't go there. Plus, find help. ASAP. Because there are spirits who dislike us. They see our weaknesses and they go there and push that button to see us derail in misdemeanors, in crimes, in problems because they dislike us. There is a book by Manuel Filomeno de Miranda through the medium Divaldo Franco. It's translated, yet to be published. Torments of Obsession. And in the Spiritist magazine, we have been publishing several chapters of it since the year 2013. You just go spiritismagazine.org. Every issue has a chapter being published. And you're going to see the case of an obsessor who is always trying to find a way to push the obsessed incarnate into a criminal action so he can finish him with suicide. And I say finish in the sense control him completely, because once there is suicide, then he is no longer on his own. He is available to his own guilt, and guilt is the open doors to whomever wants to control us. That's why I'm recommending, if there is any guilt inside of you, read this book, Thought and Life, chapter 20, let me see, 22, guilt. Work on it. Do not allow yourself to live your life with guilt, because it says, shades of remorse activate an infiltration of darkness within the delicate tissues of the soul. So it's very dangerous. We project devastating energies, says Emmanuel, through guilt and depression. Exactly. So we have to be super careful. Heal you from your guilt. It's a disorder in itself, creating conflicts, making us feel paralyzed, stagnated, because we feel we are useless. If you hear that voice telling you, I am a nobody, I've made so many mistakes, who am I? Don't go there. And I'll give you another tip. I don't have the book here now, but it's named Jesus in the Home. There's a chapter there that talks about Jesus' parable telling the very disciples, when you hear that voice telling, putting you down, that voice doesn't come from high spirits. They want you down because they want you paralyzed. They want you stagnated to control you. So you throw that away and tell yourself, I am a child of God, and you feel it and you believe in it, and you tell yourself, I can overcome it all, and I will begin anew. That's humility. Some people think that modesty and humility is to do nothing, punishing themselves, self-sabotage and self-punishment. No, it's not. Only God can judge you, and God doesn't judge us. If society is judging you, close your ears, keep marching forward, and forgive yourself. Okay? Forgive yourself, but correct yourself, like Paul of Tarsus. He made a huge mistake, and Jesus is so loving to all of us that he kept investing on Saul and made Saul be the one who brought Christianity to another level. To prove to us that it doesn't matter if you made a huge mistake. It matters that you correct yourself and move forward. Correct it and always learning, moving forward, helping yourself, helping others. That's what matters. Throw away the judgment that you are making. And if you are paralyzed because you think people are judging, no. If you believe in people's judgment, it's because you're judging yourself. So tell yourself, I'm going to love myself more. You know why? Because you're a child of God. You cannot sabotage your own progress because God wants you to co-create with Him. And if you sabotage yourself by self-punishing, you're trying to be more than God. Every day, God is giving you a new day, new opportunities. Begin anew. Learn to begin anew. Be mindful. The past is in the past. Really, let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. We really need to move forward. That's why Jesus brought the good news, saying, you are born and reborn yet again to progress. What the world says, help people. Help them also get out of their stagnation, because people who waste time talking bad about others, they are not progressing. And if you stop because of them, you are not progressing either. So leave them alone. People are free to do whatever they like, to think what they like. And as Paul of Tarsus says in the book Paul and Stephen, people talk things. Today they think you're a hero, Barnabas, and then tomorrow they think you're a criminal. Isn't that what happened to Jesus? Who cares? It matters what you think about yourself, and only you. As Mother Teresa says, it's between God and us, not between us and them. Okay? Now, we go to the real deal here. You've probably been waiting for this. Divorce. Says André Luiz, divorce should not be facilitated or stimulated among humanity on earth, because there are no legal or non-legal marriages without serious ties in prior common commitments. That's beautiful. And here, my opinion doesn't matter, but I agree. We should not facilitate. We need to do what? To help people. Okay. When people get married thinking, well, if it doesn't work, I'm going to get divorced. Please do not get married, because it's not going to work. well, I'm just gonna get married because, if it doesn't help, it doesn't work, I'm gonna get divorced. No, don't play with sacredness because it's somebody's life. It's your life. It's a sacred contract. Family. So we cannot facilitate it. We cannot tell people, ah, if things don't work out. Why? Because we do not get together by chance. No, we do not get married by chance. There's no chance. There's a reason. Not only this life, in prior commitments. My Vanessa, I got divorced. Don't feel guilty. Let's understand why divorce happens. André Luiz explains now. Okay? He says to us some causes of divorce. He says, having barely left the polygamous system, men and women may be subjugated to animalistic suggestions. Okay? Thus, in the first difficulties of the task to which we are called, they desert their positions of service in life, claiming imaginary incompatibilities and alleged embarrassment, often simply attributable to the narcissism that they carry within them. Pause, I'll tell you more. Let's pause here. What is he saying? One of the first causes of divorce is what? Our non-educated sexual life. Right? I'll give you an example. I know of a case far away, not giving names, but this woman got married to this man. He works at a disco, as security. So he spends the whole night in this disco, this bar. There are many women, etc. One day, his wife was pregnant. On the 8th month of gestation, she finds lipstick of some other woman on his shirt. She gets upset. He denies it all. The baby is born. Now, the baby with a few months, and the husband now is spending sometimes the nights or weekends elsewhere. For him, he says, I wanted a wife and a family, but he also wants to enjoy himself. That's what André Luiz is saying. Narcissism, he's only thinking about his needs, right? He's only thinking about his needs. He cannot put up with what André Luiz says here. He's saying the service, he cannot really fulfill his job in his marriage. And divorce is just the next thing. Let's put a pause here. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a chapter, okay, that says, okay, sorry, just miss it again here. Chapter 22. Do not separate what God has joined. But he talks about divorce on item 5, page 419. And I'm going to read just an excerpt for you because Spiritism is so liberating so many ways. It says here to us, divorce is a human law with the purpose of legally separating what is already separated in fact. It is not contrary to God's laws. since it merely reforms what humans have stipulated and is applicable only in cases in which the divine law has not been taken into account. And it goes on and on. But here it's telling us it's not a crime. And in these cases, if the person is not following through, what you're going to do. I know people who say, oh, but we're married, we have children. But if they are not on the same page and they are cheating, should we facilitate? No. But we need, at all costs, to love ourselves and to really love the children we're taking care of. So I would recommend a book for you regarding narcissism. Dodging the Energy Vampire. And I'm going to write it down here, okay? For those who have a hard time dealing with narcissism, especially if you are an empathetic person, an empath. That's why Dr. Christine Northrup writes this book, Dodging Energy Vampires by Dr. Christine Northrup. And I'm putting here on the Facebook Live so you can see the book, okay? Exactly. Thank you so much, Leia, for helping, and thank you, Melissa. We are immortal spirits, okay? But we need to watch out. Are we polygamous now? Still? Because there are people who are like this. They get married, they're not satisfied. Divorce, another one, not satisfied, another one, then 10. What's happening here, right? So Leia Severo is helping us by telling the questions in the Spirit's book is 695, 699. Thank you, Leia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let me bring that up here. The Spirit's book that Leia Severo is showing to us. Okay, thank you, Leia. Andrea Luiz has more explanation for us. In this way, they may exert vicious tyranny over the psyche of his or her mutilated or sick, needy, or ignorant companion after exploring their emotional world. He's talking about exactly what Dr. Christine Northrup says to us. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay? And saying, not to mention the cases in which they deviate in tragic homicidal suicidal decisions and a voluntary escape to their precious obligations. So, for us, some cases are inevitable. You need to protect your life. And it's in the gospel, and it's in the law of life. Do not kill. If your companion is being abusive, taking your life away, abusing you, you need to protect yourself and go away. Of course, you cannot stay there. It's not good for you, neither for you nor for your children. You need to protect yourself. Okay? It's being toxic. And then divorce comes, as André Luiz is going to tell you now and tell us all. He says, it is imperative that human society establishes strict regulations for the benefit of our brothers in their habitual infidelity to their own commitments, so they do not engage in more self-mismanagement and prevent them to regress in demeaning promiscuity of ancient times when the family principles and dignity were still completely unknown. We are not there yet, right? We're coming close to this. But if you read the book 2,000 years ago, Publius Lentulus himself, Emmanuel later, as a senator, he has a daughter, Flavia, and Flavia loves her husband, but her husband is this very case. He cannot control himself. He cheats on her. So Andre Luiz now is reminding us our human laws are going to adjust themselves to really educate our society evermore by creating regulations, very strict regulations to people who are cheaters. And there are people who now cheat their spouses through social media. They're saying, but I am not cheating, but they are cheating through social media. But I'm just talking now. You're exchanging true sexual vibrations here, doing virtual sex. That is a no-no. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, later there is a chapter that talks about the fact that we cheat in our thoughts. Exactly. And it's a real thing because we're spirits. You see how Spiritism goes deep into this. So he is educating. Spiritism is educating us. André Luiz is educating us, and the Spiritist teachings overall is educating us to observe ourselves. So educating our sexual impulsivity. Right? Exactly. So take care of your marriage. Love your spouse. Do not abuse. I know the case of a man who used to say, "Oh, my wife is great. She does it all," and was quite abusive. One day she left, and he couldn't believe. Now he understands the limit of that abuse. Good for her. That loved herself to the point that now he's learning a different way. Don't facilitate divorce, but you need to love yourself. So, André Luiz in this chapter is clearly telling us that we need to adjust our social life to the point that we educate ourselves. We cannot use people. We must not abuse people in any way and form, right? And he gives us more. He tells us, let me go back because we're almost at the end. 2 more slides. He says, it is essential that the human feeling intervenes in special cases when the divorce is a lesser evil that may arise between the greater evils hanging over the head of the couple. So there are cases in which it's very important for people to protect themselves. In cases of abuse, of physical abuse, verbal abuse, people need to step out to protect their lives, to protect the lives of their children. And people cannot judge. The other day, somebody was asking, I don't understand why women stay in marriages that are abusive. And I understand because I know several cases in which they try to get out, but the very parents, the community says, you can't, you have to put up with it. You have to forgive, but that's not about forgiveness, my friends. It's about self-preservation. So it's better to step out than to allow tragedy to take place. So divorce is necessary in cases of that nature as well. Okay? And we're talking also about understanding the limits of each other. Mhm. There are people. I remember a case many years ago that came to us. A man who was married for 50 some years. He came, he was distraught. He said, my wife said this is it. I don't understand. Well, sometimes we're so blind, we don't see the other person's needs. They have been telling us all along, and we're abusive. Cases of symbiosis, of parasitism that Luiz studied, and we need to protect ourselves against it. Science is coming to that conclusion. Read the book by Dr. Christine Northrup, Dodging Energy Vampires, that talk about cases like this in which we need to protect ourselves or we get sick. Finally, the last information that Luiz discloses to us is he says that we are destined to build harmonious relationships. That's beautiful. At the end of the chapter, he brings to us the following. Let us rest assured that today's indebted consciences will return tomorrow to adjust their own debts. So, remember, don't feel afraid like, oh my gosh, I have to put up with this person, or we're going to be together in a next life. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You may come together as mother and son, or father and daughter, or cousins, and other types of relationship, grandparents. Read the book Sex and Destiny by Andrea Lewis. It explains the very case of the spirit that pushed against committed sexual infractions reincarnates as the grandson of his grandmother, and now he has the role to love and be loved, but in a sublimated way. So the take-home message for us is, let's sublimate our impulses. And if you are married, or willing to be married, or preparing to be married, think about a million times why you're doing this. It's a sacred contract. But if you got divorced, do not feel guilty. Because divorce is not a crime. We do not facilitate it, but we need to understand, as Andrea Luiz says. And if you have questions, watch this video again. Pay attention to the instructions that the spirits give to us so you can rid yourself of guilt and begin anew. Shall we, friends? Yes? Leah Severi is giving it to us. Thank you, Leah. Chapter 8, Item 5. When we make a mistake, adultery by thought. Careful, careful. Pornography, okay? Virtual sex. No, no, no. That's not good for you. So watch it again and let's pay attention to what the spirits are telling us. At the end of the day, they are asking us to calm ourselves down, to love ourselves more, fulfill God's will, and respect our partners. Do not abuse. Do not use people. Do not abuse them either. Protect yourself as well. That's it for today, dear friends. And tomorrow we come back with another chapter in the book Evolution into Worlds, God willing. For now, a big hug to you, many blessings, and let's keep nourishing ourselves with Kardec Radio.